Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to dive right into the surprisingly complex world of public school transfer rules up in the state of Maine. If you've ever found yourself thinking about moving your child to a different public school district, you might be a little shocked to learn that the process isn't exactly a walk in the park. But hey, don't worry, we're going to break it all down for you today, step by step, using the exact guidelines and frameworks straight from the Maine Department of Education.
So let's just get right to the big question. Can you actually just choose any public school in Maine? I bring this up because so many parents operate under this assumption that moving their kid to a different school is as simple as filling out a form and requesting a different building. They think, hey, that school is way closer to my office, or that school has an amazing reputation. I'll just send my kid there.
Well, we need to bust a major myth right out of the gate here. The common assumption is that Maine has a statewide open enrollment system where you just pick the school you like best, but Maine's reality is actually quite different. The state operates on strict residency rules requiring local district-by-district consent. Having a shorter commute or chasing a slightly better school rating does not guarantee you a transfer. In Maine, limited statewide open enrollment means decisions are made locally, period.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit the default residency rule, 3 transfer pathways, proving your best interest, the reality of costs, handling denials and appeals, and we'll wrap it all up with some practical tips for parents.
All right, Section 1, the default residency rule. Basically, where you live determines where you learn. Maine's general rule is pretty straightforward. Students are automatically assigned to the public school district where their parents or guardians reside.
Because of this default rule, getting out of your assigned district isn't just an automatic right. You're usually going to need formal consent from the receiving district, and sometimes your home district, the sending district, also has to weigh in. You can't just bypass this local approval process simply because you want a change of scenery.
Moving on to Section 2, 3 pathways to transfer. Let's look at your actual options in Maine.
Okay, so despite those strict default rules we just talked about, there are recognized exceptions. The Maine Department of Education outlines 3 common pathways to get into a school outside your home district. First, you've got tuition-based attendance. Second, there's a transfer approved by superintendents. And third, applying for charter public school enrollment. Now, there is a pretty stark contrast between that superintendent's agreement and the charter school route. A superintendent's agreement is a highly formal path. 2 local superintendents have to look at your case, and if they both agree it's in the student's best interest and you approve, the transfer happens. Charter schools, on the other hand, are open to students statewide, but they come with their own totally different hurdles. They often have strict open enrollment windows, limited grade-level openings, and if applications exceed the seats they actually have, they go to a lottery system. You absolutely cannot just assume a charter seat is sitting there waiting for you year-round.
All right, Section 3, proving your best interest. This is the subjective standard of the process.
When the superintendents are reviewing your request, best interest is the magic phrase. But listen, it's a completely discretionary standard. They're going to look at the exact specific facts of your case. Are we talking about a unique academic fit, special services your kid needs, really complicated family logistics, safety concerns, or maybe your student started in one district and just desperately needs continuity of schooling after a move? Any of these can be relevant, but, and this is absolutely vital to understand, no single factor guarantees automatic approval. Since it's discretionary, your communication and your documentation are absolutely critical for making your case.
And there's incredible legal weight behind this. A Maine legislative bill literally spells out the core goal of the best interests evaluation, to ensure a student has an opportunity to receive the benefits of a free public education.
Okay, Section 4. The reality of transfer costs. These are the hidden hurdles that catch so many families totally off guard.
Getting a yes from a school district feels like a massive victory, right? But unfortunately, it's often only half the battle. If you're utilizing a tuition-based transfer because the receiving school board gave you the green light, the financial reality can hit pretty hard. Unless another very specific rule or agreement applies to you, parents are generally on the hook for both the tuition to attend that public school and the transportation costs to get the student there every single day.
Which leads us directly to this completely crucial question: who pays for the bus? Look, in a state like Maine, geography and district boundaries make daily travel a massive logistical issue. A school might gladly enroll your student, but if the commute is an hour long, or if a bus route literally doesn't exist across those district lines, well, the transfer might just be completely unrealistic for your family. Transportation is so often the deciding factor in these situations.
Section 5. Handling denials and appeals. What exactly to do when they say no.
Because a no isn't necessarily the end of the road. If a superintendent transfer is denied, you have a formal appeals process. Step 1, you absolutely must read that denial notice carefully. Step 2, a parent, a guardian, or even the student themselves if they're 18, can actually petition the Commissioner of Education for a review of that denial. And Step 3, if you really need to, the matter can ultimately be elevated right to the Maine Board of Education.
But hey, quick heads up on a major exception here. That appeal path does not apply in the same way if the receiving unit doesn't actually operate a public school at your student's specific grade level. This is exactly why it is so incredibly important to ask about commissioner review eligibility really early on in your process. The appeals process is robust, for sure, but it is not universal.
Finally, Section 6, Practical Tips for Parents. Let's build your action plan.
Maine's policies are actively changing, so you absolutely cannot rely on old advice. Here is your practical checklist before the school year even starts. Step 1, start with your resident district and ask what your options are. Step 2, confirm the exact process with the receiving district, because those local units completely control their own details, forms, and deadlines. Step 3, ask explicitly about tuition, transportation, and strict deadlines. Step 4, always request written confirmation of any approval or denial. And Step 5, keep copies of everything. Seriously, emails, forms, decisions. Creating a clear paper trail is simply the best way to protect yourself if you end up needing an appeal.
So, what's the bottom line here based on the Department of Education guidelines? Maine relies on local district consent. It is not a statewide open enrollment free-for-all. The vast majority of students are going to attend school exactly where they live. Verification of local district-by-district rules is absolutely essential because the rules are incredibly fact-specific. And ultimately, careful planning is what's going to save you from major delays and a whole lot of disappointment.
Which leaves us with this final question. Are you ready to navigate Maine's local transfer maze? Armed with this solid understanding of superintendent agreements, those sneaky tuition burdens, and the appeals process, you are now totally equipped to take action, verify those local policies, and really advocate for the best possible outcome for your student. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and good luck navigating the system.